What's going on, everybody? Welcome into One Jets Live here at One Jets Drive. I'm Caroline Hendershot, joined by Brian Baldinger of NFL Network. We are so excited for draft night. Night one is finally here. Baldy, how are you feeling?
I feel great. I feel great. Everybody in the building feels great. We just had a good meal. Okay, that helps.
It's important.
But we were talking, it's a lot like studying for a big exam. You've been studying all these players, you've been reading all the mocks, you've been talking to as many people, and now it's time to let the show go.
Right.
Let that show take over right now.
Just let the ponies roll and see where it takes us. Now, we have been talking before the show has started, and we've been kind of throwing around different scenarios and whatnot. So if you guys have any questions or comments for Baldy, please put them in the comment section because we're excited. He's ready to answer anything or any scenario you guys have out there. But I want to start first and foremost with, I feel like everyone's been talking wide receivers, tight end, tackles. What do you think about those three positions?
Well, I think, they filled a lot of needs on defense and free agency.
Right.
They rebuilt their defensive front. And so there were some things that they can address at linebacker and safety in the draft. But I feel like the offense needs one more star, wherever that is, whether it's an offensive tackle, whether that's a receiver right now, possibly a tight end. I feel like they're one star away from saying, okay, here we are. We're ready to go compete. We're ready to go compete on the biggest stage against any team, anywhere that they put us when the schedule comes out next month. And I feel like that's what we're going to see tonight.
So, but each of those rooms already have, for the Jets, have depth to them, right? Like the wide receiver room, you've got Garrett Wilson, you've got Mike Williams. What do you think a wide receiver would add to the Jets wide receiver?
Well, there is an elite trio of receivers: Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors. Unlike any group that I can remember in recent years, where I feel like all three of those players can have an immediate impact. And this is a passing league. I mean, most teams are going to throw it at least 600 times in a year. There's a lot of throws that are out there, a lot that can be spread around. And I just think that when you get a young star, they bring a lot of juice to the team. And there's nothing like rookie juice. We saw it 2 years ago with Sauce and what he did. The moment he stepped on the field, there was a different energy. And I feel like that's what this group of receivers can bring to any team right now.
Definitely. And I think you saw it just not with Sauce only, but with Garrett.
Yeah, no question.
You saw these crazy catches. I mean, he's still continuing to make those crazy catches. But then you have Aaron Rodgers at the helm this year. It's going to look completely different. Okay, what about the offensive line? The Jets did a lot of rebuilding over free agency. So what would you look for in an offensive lineman for the Jets?
So, I mean, they plugged a lot of holes. I mean, obviously, Tyron Smith comes in, left tackle. Morgan Moses, right tackle. John Simpson, left guard. Like, they've got three positions that they've just filled. They've got some depth, guys that have played here last year, to go with Tippmann and Oliveira Tucker. But I feel like because of the injury history here with a lot of different players, that you've got to have an insurance plan. And this is the best this is the best class of tackles that I can remember in a long time. And I'm not just saying that. That's not hyperbole, Caroline. This is a consensus around the NFL with personnel people. We're going to see probably 7 or 8 offensive tackles drafted in the first round. And there's generational type tackles that can line up for the next 10 or 12 years for you and be a really solid player, if not a Pro Bowl level player. And so if you get a chance to get one of those players, even if it's just an insurance plan, if something goes wrong or something happens to one of the starters, like you can hopefully plug and play and not lose anything right now.
I was going to say, do you think that this class is a group of day one starters? Not even if you lose one of the starters, but like could maybe outwork one of the starters for a job?
Oh, I would put them in. If I was to draft an offensive tackle, if the Jets just stay at 10 and draft one, I believe that whoever it is, that they have the ability to compete with any of the starters right now. And you got to kind of let them compete, because if they're better, younger, fresher, move better, more mobility, healthier, if they can win the position, then they win the position, and that other player that you signed becomes a swing tackle, backup player, whatever. But you want to get the best 5 players out there on the field as early as you can.
Okay, make sure you guys are asking Baldy questions in the chat, because he's ready to answer them whenever you have them. But there is one comment that I have.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers, Guy25 asked, Brock Bowers or Joe Alt? That's assuming.
Yes, they're both available.
They would both be available.
I'm a little biased here, biased. I mean, my brother played with Joe Alt's father in Kansas City for a long time. I've known John, his father. Joe Alt he's like, I think if he was drafted here, he would start here. Like, regardless of who else, he started for 3 years at Notre Dame. He's a very polished, he's a massive technician, is what he is. You really can't find a flaw in his game. He's going to be a day one starter. And so, to me, Joe Alt, if he would come here, he's going to start here.
We were talking earlier. I don't think that Joe Alt will be available.
I don't think so either.
For the Jets to get, because you said that you see him going to the Chargers.
Well, the Chargers are picking number 5. Jim Harbaugh, now the head coach, tried to recruit him at Michigan 4 or 5 years ago, and he lost. Notre Dame won the battle. Jim Harbaugh, he doesn't stop because you spurned him once.
He's persistent.
He's persistent, Carolyn. So I could see him saying, you know what, I missed you at Michigan, but I ain't missing you here. I could see that. There's a need at right tackle. Now, he's been a left tackle. There's other players. J.C. Latham.
I was just about to ask about him. Yep.
Is a guy out of Alabama who's another massive human being, massive power, very, very good player. Day one starter. He could start for a half a dozen teams at right tackle in this league. Maybe the Chargers say, you know what, he's a better run blocker than Joe. We want to be able to run the ball the way we did at Michigan, the way I did at San Francisco when I was the head coach of the 49ers. We want to pound it. Maybe he's a better run blocker, more powerful at the point, and maybe he's the selection at number 5.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense, especially, you're right, my Michigan man, I'm biased, I'll admit it, but he does not like to know for an answer.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now let me keep the questions coming for Baldy, but I want to show Baldy, look at this picture of the NFL draft.
It's unreal.
It is crazy.
It's a crazy
out
scene.
there. How insane. I don't know how many people that is. I can't even begin to estimate.
I mean, that is a huge, huge open square area right there in downtown Detroit. You see Aiden Hutchinson with his fist in the air.
Yep, that's
like it's. I don't think anything in the history of Detroit has ever drawn a crowd like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that looks like it's in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, I
right
agree.
There.
I agree. And I think, Detroit having this, I think, is so special for them. They're such a city of pride.
Yes.
That I think that them being able to host this kind of event is so special for them. Okay, we have another question for you.
Yes.
We had watch out for Buffalo to trade up. Now, speaking of trades, what are you kind of thinking about the top 10 and where you could maybe see some trades happening?
Well, I think it could start as early as number 3 right now. I think the New England Patriots, although I think they're going to take a quarterback, and most people do think they're going to draft one. I mean, they won't know if they're going to draft one until they hear the offer from a team that wants to get to number 3. It could be the Minnesota Vikings. It could be the New York Giants. It could be a team from Denver. It could be a team that really covets one of these quarterbacks. So we won't know We feel like Caleb's a lock at number 1. We think Jaden is going number 2, but it's not certain. They haven't come out and said that. And so I think it's very fluid. Like, I think it could start at number 3. Arizona could trade with somebody, but they have 6 of the top 90 picks. I don't know how many more picks they really want, but if they could still get the same player that they would get at 4, at 6, or at another at 7 or wherever, then it might be something Monty Ossenfort does. He traded twice in the first round last year.
Yeah, I think there could be a lot of trades, and I think that they could be a little bit more unpredictable. Now, we got another question for you. Baldy, would you trade down, get Thomas, and maybe a third rounder, and get a pretty good wide receiver late in the first?
So trade down, it depends. Like, if I have a chance for an elite offensive tackle or an elite receiver at 10, I'm not trading. Okay. I want that player. I want star power, at MetLife Stadium this fall. But if I could still get an elite player and trade down, I would certainly listen to the conversation and listen to the offer.
Let's say there are some trades for the quarterback.
Yes.
And let's say 4 quarterbacks go off the board to start. How does that affect the rest of the top 10?
Well, it's going to push all of the top defensive players, offensive tackles, and wide receivers down. So if the wide receiver class or run starts with Marvin Harrison to Rome to Malik, that would get pushed down. We don't know what the Chargers or Tennessee is going to do. We think offensive line. But if the receivers are not going because quarterbacks and offensive linemen are going, then those receivers are going to get clustered, and it could be teams going, I want one of those 3 guys. They could force a trade. Normally, the trades are forced by somebody wanting a quarterback. But I could see a wide receiver in the trade market this year, tonight, if these receivers get pushed down.
I have seen some scenarios where the Jets trade up because the receivers fall. Do you think there's a possibility of that happening?
Yes. I think that Mr. Johnson and Joe Douglas and his staff, I think they have prepared themselves for any and all scenarios. And I believe that Joe has the green light to go up or to go back. I think it will be discussed with the group, but I feel like they have rehearsed all of these possible scenarios with potential teams, and I think that they'll be very, very fluid in there. And if it says, all right, let's go pick up the phone and call Joe Horitz with the Chargers, who Joe knows very well from his time in Baltimore. Like, if he picks up the phone and calls Joe, we want that 5th pick, what's it going to cost? I believe that that's a phone call that could be had.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenarios that could go down. It really just depends on what happens early in the board. Now, we do have one of our players has been tweeting out on what he's asking people, what they want to hear. Now, Breece Hall tweeted out, I want to hear y'all's thoughts too.
Yeah.
Look at the amount of people that want a receiver, 55.6%. And then there's tackle, and then there's trade back and get a pick, maybe a 2nd-round pick, and then there's QB. Now, Joe Douglas made some comments in his pre-draft presser about wanting to be kind of like Green Bay and be that QB factory, that QB farm. So maybe that will happen later in the draft. But what would it take for the Jets to actually get the receiver that fits them best?
I think, you have to wait and see how it falls, because we talked about maybe the quarterbacks go early, as many as 4 of them. Who knows? Maybe 5. I don't think so, but maybe 4. So you have to kind of wait and see. Like, when I see Breece put that out there and I see the fans go 55% receivers, what it tells me is we want touchdowns.
Yeah.
We want offense. We want touchdowns.
Totally.
Like, this was a team bereft of touchdowns last year. They didn't throw touchdowns. They didn't score enough touchdowns. They were shut out in 3 games last year. Like, they want touchdowns.
Yeah.
And that's what receivers do. They get to the end zone. That's what this trio of receivers can do. And it's not to knock what Garrett has done, what Mike Williams can do, what anybody else, Tyler Conklin, Breece. Like, you get star power at receiver with this quarterback, they have a chance to score a lot of touchdowns.
Just imagine the depth that Aaron Rodgers has option-wise when playing. If you add another receiver, because you have Garrett Wilson, you have Mike Williams, you have Tyler Conklin, like you're saying, you have Breece Hall. He can do a little bit of everything. So there's a lot of options and ways to spread the ball around. It only makes the other team's life harder. So I think that's the most important
The other thing it does is it really, it dictates what the defense can do. If you have, because ultimately your receiver is only as good as his ability to beat man coverage. So if you're playing those teams that press you at the line, like Aaron's going to go to the guy that wins quickly. That's why Devontae Adams was so good. That's why Garrett Wilson, we believe, just through training camp last year, was so good because of how quickly he won at the line of scrimmage against no matter who he was going up against in practice, going up against Sauce, whoever it might have been. Aaron's going to go to who wins. Right. And so teams are going to try and take a guy out, maybe two guys out. But if you've got stars out there that can all win, it's going to make the quarterback's job a lot easier.
Okay, so I know you gave us a mock draft leading up into this. Has anything changed with your mock draft in the last few days, seeing maybe some talks of trades or what have you? Has anything changed with your
I still think
process?
It's going to be an offensive tackle or a wide receiver. Now, what particular order depends on who goes before the Jets draft. I believe that Atlanta is going to go defense, and I think Chicago could go defense.
Okay.
It might open things up really for the Jets to have the choice of tackle or receiver if something like that happens. That's when we did the mock draft, that's kind of how I was looking at it. So that really hasn't changed for me very much. Like I haven't put many offensive tackles above Olu like I did back when we did the mock draft.
Yep.
But I can certainly see people falling in love with Fuaga. Can he play left tackle? Can he play right tackle? He's been a right tackle. So it's just a question of position flexibility right now.
Right. Yep, definitely. Okay, so we got another question or comment, really. Boy Green said, on Flight 24, this Jets team can boast one of the best offenses in football. I love it. Also, awesome job to the team on Flight 24. That's correct. They've been crushing it. Our doc crew has been amazing, off the charts. But one of the best offenses in football. How does that sound to you, looking at last year and then looking at everything they've done in free agency and what the possibility of this offense could be?
I don't think, any team could have done more than what the Jets just did in free agency. And, free agency is, all right, you recognize that there's holes in your roster, fix the holes, okay? So, here comes Mike Williams at wide receiver. Here comes Tyron. Here comes Morgan. Here comes Simpson. You look at what they've replenished the defensive front, including, the big move for Hassan Reddick, who is a phenomenal player and an upgrade. So, they've got as much depth as anybody on the defensive front in football. If they could ever play defense with a lead in the fourth quarter, I can't imagine what MetLife Stadium is going to be like, Carolyn. It literally can keep you up at night with excitement of just how much fun that stadium can be.
And I just think the other thing that can keep you up at night is imagine the defense being on the field for less time with the rotation that they have at D-line, the amount of energy that they are going to have and the amount of power that they're going to still have in the fourth quarter, all of that. That, to me, is a really scary thing.
Well, it's fun to think about, and it's real. I think the next phase for this defense, providing they can, get the offense humming and get it to where we think it's going to be, at least on paper right now. They've got to go execute. But if they have a lead, the one thing that has been missing is just takeaways. Just tip ball interceptions, forced fumbles, balls on the ground, loose balls are all, they're ours. Own it. Get to the top of the leaderboard in takeaways. Because I can just imagine if this defense is giving extra at-bats to this offense, just how powerful this thing could build, how quickly this thing could build.
Yeah, and it could really take off. Okay, we're going to get back to the prospects that are on the red carpet right now. And look at these fits. Okay, so we've got Marvin Harrison Jr., and it kind of looks like he has a little bit of a sparkle maybe to him. Yeah. And then Rome in the middle, nice and simple, classic. And then Neighbors with the nice big chain. What do you think, Baldy? I need the fashion.
Fashion
the fashion breakdown from Baldy.
I think, I think they're all stylish, obviously. They all look like phenomenal athletes, even in those suits that only a guy like me could buy on layaway. I don't have the kind of cash that these guys have. But I do think that they've been accented with the right amount of jewelry. I think it says star power. They belong on the red carpet.
Yes.
And the only thing better than all three of those guys in those new suits is how they have played on the field over the last 2 years.
You're completely correct about that. And the countdown is on for the 2024 NFL Draft presented by Bud Light. Watch all 7 rounds across 3 days live April 25th through the 27th with NFL Network draft coverage presented by Verizon. Additional coverage on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN Deportes, and streaming on NFL Plus. Now, I want to go... Oh, we're getting a surprise. Oh, look at this, Baldy.
That's a transition.
Oh, my God.
I wasn't ready for that one.
Take me back to this moment. What was going on here?
That's obviously Mike Piazza right there. And we are in Hermosa Beach, probably like 1995. You can see he's got a cast on his thumb.
Yep.
So he's injured. I'm like at the end of my career, trying to maybe play another year or not, whatever, trying to extend it, because I always believe play as long as you can, then 2 more years. So we were training out there in Hermosa back then, and we got to know each other. We had a lot of fun out there on the beach.
That was a young Baldy.
Yeah, that was like 30 years ago. Yes.
Okay, we got one. I want to bring up one more thing.
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison's chain. I want to, if you guys can throw that tweet up on the screen, because this chain is a tribute to his dad, but also just like the most intricate thing that you will ever see. It's a video of his chain. There's a lion on it.
Yeah.
It's completely bedazzled. We'll wait for it to come up on the screen.
Yeah.
But it is this beautiful beast. And he said it's kind of dedicated to his father. It's in honor of him. He's wearing it tonight. It's not as flashy as Malik Neighbors' chain, but it's just like a simple pendant.
It's symbolic.
Yes.
Symbolic.
Yep.
Yeah, look,
Here it is.
Okay. Oh, wow.
You like that?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the king and his like lion cub.
Oh, that's cool.
Kind of a tribute
That's
to
a
his
nice
dad.
yeah.
Don't you like that one?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, his dad went to Roman Catholic High School in Philadelphia, Pride of Philadelphia, obviously Syracuse, and then, Hall of Fame career at the Colts. And, his son had picked up right where he left off. Honestly, like, you look at Marvin, his rookie year in Columbus with Garrett, with Jackson Smith and Jigba, all these receivers, he was the most dominant player in the Rose Bowl that year.
Yep.
Like, he had 3 touchdowns that day. Like, he stepped on the campus there and dominated right away.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to see where he goes, even though everyone wants a piece of him. And last but not least, it is draft day. That's a pick of the war room. Everyone is ready to go.
Yeah.
I think we're counting down here because we're getting into the final minutes.
I just think about the need for technology to work in this moment. Like, because Joe's got to be able to pick up the phone and call 31 other teams.
Yeah.
If the situation calls for it. And so when you pick up that phone, like somebody else might be calling you. And that's the buzz right there. Some people just love the draft for that, 2 or 3 hours of excitement tonight, tomorrow, Saturday. It is an adrenaline junkie's dream to be on there and to get the best haul of picks. 2 years ago, to get, Brees, Garrett, Jermaine, like that was an incredible haul. If they get anything close to anything like that tonight and this weekend, I mean, that's just going to be an infusion of talent and energy that this building probably has never seen.
I don't think Jets fans will be able to contain themselves if it's anything close to that haul, because that was an incredible class and they have proven themselves on the field. But I want to hear last final thoughts before we get ready to see the picks go off the board.
I want to see the Jets draft a star, like a true star. That generally means wide receiver, Carolyn. And I feel like they've got the quarterback. They've upgraded the offensive line. Star wide receivers aren't allowed to be stars unless the line does their job. Spoken like a true lineman here. But I feel like I want to see a star walk into this facility, walk into MetLife Stadium. Just the type of swag that we have seen a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar, a Garrett. We've seen these kids come from the college game, step on the field, and there's not this incubation period. They know they belong. I want to see one of these receivers come into this building, know that they belong, and go out there and compete every day and make everybody better on this team.
Whew, I think that just gave me chills.
That's my-
You got me excited, Baldy. Okay, well, we will see what ends up happening with the top 10 picks, but then also with the Jets and what they do. But thanks, everybody, for tuning in to One Jets Live. Brian Baldinger alongside me. I'm Caroline Hendershot. That's all we got. Tune back into the live show after the Jets select their number 10 overall pick. We'll see you then.